one of the things we were talking about last time you were here was that when you explained that there's 700 different languages that these Aborigines have, and that a mob, that's what they call like a tribe, a mob of Aborigines, could be just 10 kilometers away from another mob.
Yeah, so one community to the next.
They don't know what the other people are saying.
Yeah, they wouldn't know their language.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy, yeah. And then, like, imagine that many different countries inside of America.
Right.
Like, there'd be so much conflict. So a lot of these communities had conflict with one another, and then certain amounts of them were actually pushed off the land as it become, farmland or whatever it might have been, and have now been pushed into like communities where there's all these other separate countries, essentially dialects, that have got to now coexist, and like they've been at war with one another since the dawn of their time, so it's like it's pretty full on when you think about it like that. And then the other thing that's really hard is, how do they teach that in schools where there's 700 different dialects?
Are these, and they're not documented, these dialects,
A lot of them aren't. A lot of them are dying out with the people, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a shame.
This thing that you were saying about these cave paintings that show these animals, can we find those?
You probably could, yeah. I'm sure there's something documented on the net, more than me just saying they look similar. I'm sure there's something like that. But like whether they were a spiritual person or animal or being is hard to say. But you hear stories about the hairy people and things like that. Like that ain't people, eh?
Yeah, what is that?
Australian Yowie.
It's like a really skinny Darth Vader.
We put the Western word on it.
What is it? Yowie?
Yowie, like your Bigfoot.
Oh. So did they... Whoa, what is that image? That's the Yowie? So this is...
That looks like the bloody devil eating someone there.
Something that... So these... And there's more... Wow, there's more than one of these.
Yeah.
Huh. This thing that they... What are they showing?
Yeah, look at the similarity in them.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
And what are those things to the left of it? Like, what is that thing?
I don't know.
Like, what are all those things? It looks like a giant ball floating with a string attached to it. Like, but there's so many. Scroll back down again, Jamie. There's so many similar images of these long-armed creatures with 4 fingers. Whoa.
Isn't that amazing, eh?
Do they know how old these paintings are?
I'm sure they do know some of them. But there's artifacts going back 70,000 years now.
Whoa.
Yeah, 6 toes, whatever that is.
Yeah, what is that thing?
So, and there was like big like events in the last 10,000 years, as in like meteor strikes and things like that. So it's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a big one that's detailed off the coast of Australia around 5,000 years ago. Like, look at these things. How weird. Look at their heads.
Aliens, Joe.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So, like, yeah. I think there's even some paintings of like spaceships.
Really?
Or what you would consider as spaceships.
Wow. Now, did the Aborigines, do they have a history of the use of psychedelics? Are there psychedelic drugs?
Take it there.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, because there was a lot of bush medicine that they used. So, whatever the side effects could have been of that.
Look at those fucking things. Like
look how many there is.
Bush medicine. Like, what does that mean?
Like just natural herbs, natural things that, it might be the sap of a tree, it might be leaves boiled up, it might be some sort of nut.
Australian rock art might be the oldest in the world. Wow.
Does it actually say how old?
Look how
60,000 years.
Fucking
I know.
60,000 years ago, and they look like aliens.
Yep.
I mean, those look
Isn't
exact.
that incredible?
Giant black eyes, huge heads. That looks exactly like the classic gray alien.
Some paintings might also mean something else. So, like, I know we're looking at those as faces, but
Right.
so one of my company's logos it's a bunch of dots, and the words Nalia, which is in the Nullamar language, which is like the community that I'm near. In the Nullamar language, it means like people come together to create a community. And then so those drawings that we just looked at could also be similar to that. Like there's two communities that are coming together.
Oh.
The line in the middle might mean this is their land, which could be a ridge line, so your land's there, our land's here.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole circle around it could actually mean the world or community, everything together. So even though it looks like a face, it could actually mean something a lot different.
Right.
And that's one of the difficulties in Australia with teaching the traditional people's past is there's so much to it. And there's so much that's not understood from one community to the other. So it does make it very difficult. But it's sad that it is getting lost.
Well, and when you're dealing with 700 different languages and people that have lived in this area for 60,000+ years, I mean, that is crazy. Yeah. I mean, how much work is being done to document all this stuff?
I don't really know. A lot of these communities are very remote, so I don't know how much help there actually is for them. I don't know how many people can go to a place like that to document it. Right. I don't know how many people are actually qualified to document it either. So, it is very difficult.
And do they have written language when it comes to this?
Yeah,
all of them?
I believe so.
Yeah. So there's 700 written languages.
Oh, I don't know about written language really. Because it's one thing to speak a language because that's what you know, but what reason do they have to write it down?
Right. Do they have an alphabet like we do, or do they share the alphabet?
I don't believe so.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know enough to say too much because I don't want to offend these people,
Right.
And I'm definitely no expert on it. I can only give you, what I do know and what I've heard and learnt myself. But I think a part of the struggle in Australia with Aboriginal culture is that it's not a written language. So, like, how can it be passed on to someone else? You're either in the family and you grew up listening to the language and understand it,
right?
Or you don't. So,
or you don't. There's a very famous painting that shows what appears to be men in crafts flying through the sky in the background of an ancient painting. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I actually have a page. One of the first pages I ever put on my website is like a bunch of these, because throughout history, there are these indications of ships, of craft.
But you know the one I'm talking about? It's like, and
yes.
that's the shape of it. It's also like a plate turned on its side, and then there's a person inside of it.
Yeah, man. It's
flying through in that same, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, look how it's flying.
But, the thing is that everybody can say art. The one above that's pretty cool because that was a hidden thing. I've studied that one where it says Discovery 15th century. Above her left shoulder, there is an object. And if you really zoom in, look at the dude staring up at it. As a painter, my wife is a painter. Everything is intentional.
Where's the guy? The guy on the
right over there. It's pretty cool.
Looking up.
So I think that's 15th century, it said. So the problem with this, Joe, is
go to the original one, the one that we just looked at, Jamie, the one right before that. Yeah. So you get a big picture of that.
Yeah.
That is so strange. Like here you got Christ being crucified, and then above him, UFOs. Like, is that supposed to be aliens, or is that supposed to be angels? Like, what is that supposed to be in these things that they have? It's real similar to what we're talking about here.
That's the argument of Miracle of Fatima, let's say. I mean, again, this is so speculative. We have a witness here of, Pilate, but when you see something like the Miracle of Fatima, if you look at that...
What is the Miracle of Fatima?
God, that's that one that was, considered a real miracle by the church, and the 3 kids were getting messages, I'll get this all wrong, but for like months that they're going to be visited and to bring people, and bigger groups gathered to where there was over 100,000 people.
What year is this?
1917.
So, dozens of thousands, if not hundreds, but dozens for sure, see an event. a mass sighting of something that happened. We're talking people that were religious, people that weren't religious, doctors at the time.
That's not a real image, is it,
No,
Jamie?
that one was doctored a little bit, so you could see like they're all looking at something.
But that's not real.
Yeah,
But that's
that thing wasn't really
that's
there.
the crowd, right? The crowd is real. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Picture the crowd
here's the
is
thing.
real.
People come out, something happened that was so intense. Some people thought it was religious, that it was a visitation, but other people saw it as technological, like something descended. Look into it. I'm just saying, art, pictures, like paintings we're talking about, man, you can interpret them all day. I can't hold on to that. I can hold on to an eyewitness with other eyewitnesses, with radar systems, and with video. We're in a different era now. We don't have to paint it, man. We get to see it. It's fascinating, man.
It is fascinating, but it's way more fascinating when someone like you talks about it versus some fucking random kook. That's what makes me incredibly interested, is just your credibility and the fact that this is not, you don't have a history of seeing wacky shit that other people don't see.
No, just this once.
But it's on video, and that there's other ones as well. It's really strange. And I've seen people try to explain it away. And what I don't like about when they explain it away or attempt to explain it away is that they're trying really hard. They're not going, who knows what this fucking thing is? They're not looking at it like cleanly. They're looking at it like a quote-unquote skeptic. I don't like the idea of being a skeptic. Not that I don't think you should be skeptical of certain things. I certainly think you should be. But there's a lot of people that brand themselves as skeptics. And I think it's a lazy way to look at things. I really do. Because I think you're just looking for the holes in things without looking at it objectively. If you wanted to be a scientist, if you wanted to be someone who is a fan of science, then you have to look at it as a thing. Like, look at this information and let's study this without any bias, any preconceived notions. I don't think they're doing that. They're looking at it and they're trying to find a way where they can justify that it's fake. And they're just doing all sorts of mental gymnastics to try to make it fake. That video that you show where that thing slips off to the left and takes off at incredible rates of speed, that alone should freak people the fuck out.
Yeah, well, I think because people confuse all the time, like we took the video. No, it was another crew that took the video. We watched it for 5 minutes with our eyeballs, and there was 4 of us. And we all have the same story. We all saw the same stuff. We all came back and looked at each other and scratched our head and said, WTF, serious? What was that?
Real concern is that just like we are an evolution of those lower primates, it's going to be an evolution of us.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. I don't think, there may not be any avoiding it.
It might not be.
Again, we're the virus.
Yeah.
And this is just one of my thoughts. This is me saying unequivocally that
But
we
we're
are
cool.
the virus. The
thing is, I like people. This is the other side of it. People are cool.
Yeah,
They're cool to
I
hang
often
around
pray
with.
that aliens go ahead and attack this motherfucker, so white people and black people will cut the bullshit and finally have to unite like one great movie of Red October.
Dude, I think we're gonna get our asses kicked every
I'm not
single
saying we're
time.
not, but
Don't do it.
at least for one time in humanity, all the empires would have to unite. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Do you remember that Reagan speech?
No.
You never heard it?
Uh-uh.
Reagan actually said that I forget who he was addressing.
You may be the
but
first
it's a
person
famous-
to ask, besides him putting in the civil rights, the King Day, you might give me the only other thing I like about Ronald Reagan.
It was a very strange thing he
it to
said.
me. Okay.
And one of the things that was really strange about it was that it shot off this gigantic wave of conspiracy theorists who are thinking that they're going to tell us something about alien contact. Check this out. Listen to this.
Some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Dude.
And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
Tell you what, dude. Ronald Reagan knocked it out of the fucking park right there.
With that
no matter
speech,
what you say.
straight up, I have a song called Reagan. Many of you know. Wasn't the biggest fan of him or many U.S. presidents because I rapped about more than him in there. But that definitely is going to make it on a Killer Mike song.
Really?
I
that's
have
awesome.
to. You got
Yeah.
just Killer Mike and LP. We definitely, if anybody think aliens are going to come kill us all one day, so I'm going to maybe suggest to L. Hopefully he'll use it, but if not, fuck it, I'm going to do it. That shit is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Do you think that it is possible that aliens came down and manipulated the genetics of lower primates and created people?
I'm willing, based on all the theology, I'm willing to accept that that's a possibility, because I don't think that we're alone. Right? I just don't. There's nothing. Even if there's some divine thing that woke up and decided to make us, and we're special children, and we're on Earth, the blue planet, there had to have been some other things made or played with. Right? I don't think that. I think it's very arrogant as a human being to think that it's just us, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that the possibility that something made it here and something happened exists, absolutely. Because if we're experimenting on animals and things, we got, like, my daughters are me. Their temperament is me. Their curiosity is me. Like, I'm looking at Michael and I'm looking at Anaya and I'm like, arguing with Anaya is like arguing with myself. She doesn't know why she acts like that. I don't know. Now, if I can look at my pit bull and say, well, her mother acted like this, and this is why I know she's coded this way, I know her father was this, then I have to look at my daughter and say, on a genetic basis, 23 of my chromosomes, I know our temperament is like that. I know why Michael is not going to argue. She's a smart kid. She's an art student. But the minute you put her in danger, she's going to punch you. You know what I mean? That's what it's going to be. And it's not going to be anything else, because she is going to protect her. So it's like, I have to think that my curiosity, if nothing else, my drive to do this. So if you take the primate side, you say, well, you know that I have to live amongst this. I got to survive as wolves, as lions, tigers, bears out here. I have to go high. I have to create shelter. There's something else with a very small input could have dropped here, landed here. And what's crazy, if you look into Nation of Islam philosophy of sorts, they have a UFO type philosophy. Something here, and by their mind, a scientist created, all of went astray and kind of created the different races. But something could have come here, and it gets here, and it says, boom, if I do this and this, and I create this, and then we set upon evolution, and we end up here. Or that just could be, me stoned, having watched too many sci-fi movies. But it's possible.
It is possible. There's zero evidence for it, but it's certainly possible that if we could go to another planet that we knew had life, that it's possible if we found some lower primates that we would manipulate them. Yeah. It's very possible. If we had a full survey of another planet, we got there and like, okay, here's the good news. Good news, a lot of life. Yeah. Bad news is the most intelligent thing is basically a chimp. But we got some ideas, and what we're going to do is we're going to plant some seeds of our genetics in some of these chimps. They're going to be smarter than the other chimps, and then we're going to leave mushrooms everywhere. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Leave the mushrooms everywhere. Let the chimps eat the mushrooms.
Maybe we're in a fishbowl.
Maybe.
Yeah, because again, we very arrogantly think of ourselves as top choice, but maybe we're just a virus on this living thing. Maybe we say, but you think about it. We could go extinct.
Yep.
A mass virus could kill us all.
Yep. For sure.
That's what we're constantly fighting. The Earth wouldn't stop.
But the thing about a virus is, virus is wholly negative in our eyes. I don't think we're wholly negative to each other.
I don't think a virus thinks it's wholly negative.
So what I'm saying is when they're eating you up, you're having a good party. When you get the flu, they're like, dude, it's a party up in this bitch.
If this thing is really a living thing, if the Earth is really a living thing, we are possibly the worst things for it.
Oh, for sure.
Why shouldn't it get rid of us?
Other than meteors.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're the worst thing for not just the biological life, but the particulates in the atmosphere.
And now we're creating technology that's going to eventually kill us and get rid of us that may be able to live in harmony with biology. Maybe. So, maybe it's over for us in a few thousand years.
Human evolution. Do you ever stop to think, what are we going to be like a million years from now if we do survive? Have you ever done this sort of thought experiment where you say, okay, if things keep going the same way, we used to be very strong and very hairy, and we're getting progressively softer as we don't need to use our bodies as much. Our brains are getting larger. Our heads are getting bigger. Do you do that sort of thought experiment to see what we're going to become? And
not in a systematic scientific way, because the process is so fraught with incredible detail that I think it's hard for anybody, even experts in evolutionary biology, to really tell us anything that will hold water, that's really predictive. But on a general level, because people often wonder, why is it that we haven't been visited by aliens, right? This is a thing that comes up whenever you're talking about other life inside the universe.
I was going to get to that in a minute with
you. But the answer to that could be quite straightforward. Nobody out there cares about us because we're so ill-developed, we're so young on the cosmic scene that there's nothing interesting for them to find here on planet Earth. So to me, there's a natural explanation for why there can be other life out there, and yet they don't hang out around planet Earth, just the way we don't hang around an anthill to try to have a conversation with, what's going on inside that particular structure.
I buy that argument the least.
You do? Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we're interested in butterflies. Butterflies are so boring. We're interested in moles. We're interested in
interested in
squirrels.
We're interested in them for very specific reasons,
Sure.
right? So typically we're interested either because we want to see the evolutionary development that yields this particular life form, or because there's a general curiosity about how this object is put together. If these other beings are so far beyond us that those kinds of taxonomy questions are no longer of any interest, then hanging around here may not hold anything for them to make the journey and stick around long enough for us to notice.
I don't buy that, again, for two reasons.
Okay.
One, because why would we assume that they're so far beyond us that they wouldn't be interested in these talking monkeys with thermonuclear weapons who dominate an entire planet?
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. If
Right,
we
but
found some planet
Right.
somewhere where people are, the politicians all lie to themselves, everyone gets video through the sky, they fly in metal tubes that hurl over the oceans.
Right.
They pollute the oceans and eat all the fish. Like, these people are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
We've got to go there and check this out.
But imagine that this civilization, the notion of lording over a planet is like us talking about, the ant lording over a grain of sand. So they may be galactic as opposed to planetary in their hegemony.
Mm-hmm.
And the notion of some little tiny rock orbiting some nondescript star in the suburbs of this completely ordinary galaxy off there on the side may not have the kind of pull that you imagine that it does.
Oh, I disagree. We think it's interesting when we see a chimp use a rock to open up a nut. We
Yeah.
think it's interesting that, there's an amazing photograph of an orangutan that's spearfishing. Have you ever seen it?
I have seen that actually.
It's really
yeah.
cool.
Right. No, it is.
He learned it from people, apparently, but
Yeah.
it's still interesting nonetheless.
Right, but I don't think 100 years from now we're going to be as interested in
Really?
these kind of qualities, or 1,000 years from now, or 10,000 years from now.
Well, why
So-
would we assume that these things that come here from another planet are more than 10,000 years?
Well,
advanced?
that's a very good question, and I think the answer to that is we look at the history of the cosmos until today. And let's just call it our universe to be concrete, 13.8 billion years. And we look at life on planet Earth, and it's, a handful of billions of years old. So in a handful of billions of years, you can go from some complex molecules to human beings.
I like how you say it like it's not that long.
It's not that long because,
I know.
Imagine that life began a few billion years earlier in some other system, stars and galaxies, they were starting up, a billion years after the Big Bang. So it could be that life in other worlds has a head start on us by a few billion years. And we know what can happen in a few billion years. It can take us from single cell to us.
Sure.
And you can imagine from a few billion years from now into the future, it could be radically different. So to say it's 10,000 years ahead of us, that to me would be the unexplained coincidence. How unlikely that they started and we started within 10,000 years in the span of billions of years. That seems unlikely to me.
Does it seem unlikely when you're talking about the infinite size of the universe, and there's perhaps an infinite number of Brian Greens
Sure.
out there talking to an infinite numbers of me?
Good point. So you're absolutely right. We're almost guaranteed, if the spatial expanse of the universe is infinitely large,
Yes.
that there are going to be places where it's within 10,000 years of
Sure.
us. But those are going to be a very small number compared to the places where it's not 10,000
Is
years.
that true, or would it be an infinite number of them?
Well, it'd
Not
be
a
infinite,
small
but,
number
but,
at
they're,
all.
but they're different kinds of infinities.
So you mean
know?
in the space of the
Yeah.
exact scope of the universe itself, a small number, relatively speaking, to where we are
Yeah, so I
physically?
would say it slightly differently. I'd say look at a finite-sized ball in this large spatial
Okay.
expanse. So everything is finite now.
So let's get a 5 billion light
year
year ball.
right?
Okay.
And within that ball, the number that are differing from us by 10,000 years will be very, very small compared to the number differing from us by, say, a billion years or a couple of billion years.
So then-
simply by the law of numbers, if we imagine that they're random processes that are generated. Now, there could be some physical principle that prevents life from emerging before, say, 4 billion years ago. And if that's the case, and we're not aware of that principle, then you'd be absolutely right, that we'd all be roughly at the same starting point, and there's no reason to suspect that they would be so far ahead of us. But I don't know of any such principle.
But you almost have a reductionist view of this, right? Like so if you had a guess, if you had $100 to bet, has alien life ever observed us? You would say no.
Well, by observed, you mean could they just turn a big telescope in our direction and gather some radio waves? But yes, I would take that bet, because frankly, we've only been generating radio waves for the last, 70 years. So it's only a 70 light year ball around us. And within that small radius, very unlikely that there's been some alien world that's examining us.
So it would have to be something that would be able to recognize our signal and visit us.
Right.
But don't we look at observable planets and solar systems and discover Goldilocks planets?
We do.
And we examine those planets from vast distances away.
Yes.
And wouldn't you assume that a life form that is perhaps thousands of years more advanced than us, with the exponential increase in
Yes.
technology, I mean, if they ever got to the point where we are, that they would see these Goldilocks planets as well and recognize that Earth is one of them?
Yes. However, if they are so far away, they're going to be examining Earth as it was hundreds
right.
of
Good
thousands or millions of
Right,
years ago.
right.
So if you truly want them to be examining us in the sense of human presence on planet Earth, then it's a much more difficult proposition to imagine that they've actually been doing that.
Is it possible there's another way to examine things where you're not hampered by the speed of light?
Not
No?
that I know of. I mean, any signal in the
Right.
world that we're aware of is restricted by special
speed of
theory
travel.
by the speed of travel, which is
Yeah.
now look. There's quantum entanglement,
Mm-hmm.
which is a strange property of the quantum world, in which distant objects can behave as if they are one.
Yes.
And in some sense respond instantaneously to an influence in one location at a distant location, no matter how far apart they are. But that isn't really observing. That's more realizing correlations between physical properties at widely separated locations. But I'm not aware of a means of leveraging that to actually observe what's happening in some distant location, even if you do have quantum entangled particles.
This is one of the things that they say, people that have been abducted. I had Travis Walton, this guy.
I've seen.
This guy
I've watched
with
it.
his
Yeah.
bobblehead.
Yeah, I've watched
He's
it.
very compelling in his descriptions of his encounter with these beings. But one of the things that he was saying was they were talking to him, but it wasn't with words. Like they were communicating with him, and he understood what they were saying, but it wasn't. They weren't saying things in a like, "Hey, Travis, why don't you relax? Because we're here from planet fucking whatever it is."
The information was flowing faster
Yes.
because it was like boom right away. What I think, you get it.
Yes, they were explaining things to him in some sort of a telepathic way.
Wow.
And it was mind-blowing to him. And I think that that's probably the future of communication. Just like you can transmit information from phone to phone, right? You can call people. They're nowhere near you, but you can talk to them. You can send a video to someone. It's going through the air. It's just data, right? It's just information.
Do you think Travis and Bob Lazar and all these guys that have extraordinary claim believe what they are telling you? I
Yes.
don't know if what they believe is true, but what do you think they believe what they are telling you in a way that they're not lying, they're telling the truth of what they're believing?
I can't tell for certain, but I believe Bob Lazar. I believe what he's saying is true. I believe he's telling me. Now, Bob, he had one moment where he was passing by a window and he said he saw something that was small and these people were standing over it, and he didn't know if it was an alien or whether it was some sort of a form that they were trying, like a doll or something that's supposed to represent the size of an alien or some sort of a model of an alien. But he remembers he looked briefly through a window and he saw something small. He didn't see it move around. He didn't see it talk. So he doesn't know what he saw.
Yeah.
Because in his world, as he explained it, when he was working at Area 51, Site 4, that's where he worked. he said that it was very compartmentalized. And he's saying it was one of the problems with them trying to figure out, now this is assuming he's telling the truth.
Yeah, of course.
One of the problems they were trying to figure out was how to back engineer these devices, these ships. But the problem was they weren't allowed to communicate with other people outside of this very limited group of people that had access to these vehicles. And the people that were involved in the metallurgy were not allowed to communicate with the people that were involved in whatever the propulsion system was. They didn't understand what they were trying to decipher these things. But he said, and if you listen to the podcast that I did with him, that it didn't work because the scientific method requires multiple people to communicate and share ideas and to explain, and they didn't do that.
You can't improve like that.
Right.
You need to share idea.
Right.
You can't do something and compartmentalize everything.
But my communication with him, I don't know if he was telling me the truth, but he didn't seem deceptive. And he's a brilliant guy.
It's clear he's clearly like borderline genius. You hear him speak, he's very educated.
And some of the things that he talked about came to fruition. Like one of the things was there was a concept of this thing called element 115, right?
Yeah.
Now that was not really proven until the 2000s or somewhere in the 2000s. They used a particle collider and created this thing where it was a very unstable, very short-lived particle. But he was saying that wherever these beings are from, they have figured out a way to utilize a stable version of this element 115, and that's how they propel themselves. The things that he was describing were also exactly the same things that were experienced by Commander David Fravor, who was a guy who is a jet pilot.
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and so he experienced this thing move in that same direction, that same way, where there was no visible propulsion system, but they tracked this thing going from 80,000 feet above sea level to 1 in 1 second. So that's the amount of time that it takes radar to track this. So it might have been less than a second.
Yeah,
this thing traveled from 80,000 feet to 1,000.
No time.
To 1 feet.
It's
No
like that
time.
thing with the hand. He says he measured the distance between the bone and when you get in, you put your hand in it and measure the distance between your bone and the...
the scanner.
Yeah.
Yes, the scanner.
There is a lot of things like this. And, like Zachariah Sitchin was... there's a lot of stuff that you can think of that how could they know that at the time? But it's
well, the Zacharias Sitchin stuff is interesting, right?
Yes.
That's all the Sumerian text. The Sumerian text is some fascinating stuff because it's all from 6,000 years ago. And by the way, Zacharias Sitchin, he's very controversial. There's even a website called sitchiniswrong.com, and it's basically scholars of ancient Sumerian who say that his translations are completely off. But even if his translations are off, there's still a lot of really confusing stuff about ancient Sumer. And one of the things is their depictions of the solar system. They had a depiction of the solar system 6,000 years ago that shows the sun in the center, and it shows all of the known planets in the outside, and they're relatively accurate in terms of the size.
Yeah, and how about the formation of the Earth? Tiamat, Marduk. I don't remember which one is what, that's
the formation of the Earth.
That's the model that
Yes.
we use today.
Well, the scientists...
The asteroid belt,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the model that we use today. How did he know that at that time?
I don't know how they knew that. When you're saying it's Earth 1 and Earth 2, and what that means is that there was an original version of Earth, and then Earth was hit by another planet at some point in the distant past, and that's what created the moon, and that's also what created the asteroid belt.
That goes on the different direction than the rest of the planet. Like they knew that too.
Well, there's also a thing called Bode's Law, and Bode's Law measures the distance between planets, and it's based on the mass of the planet, and they figure out, because of the mass of the planet, how far these planets are from each other. And one of the things that fucks that up is the asteroid belt. I think what I might be wrong about this, but the distance between Mars and Jupiter is one of the things that screws that up, and they think that's explained by the asteroid belt, that some collision created this asteroid belt and created all of the. I mean, there's something like 900,000 known near-Earth objects that were created by the impact of these planets.
One thing I believe, and I'm sure you the same because you had a lot of these guys on your podcast, like Graham Hancock,
Yes.
Randall Carson, John Anthony West. Like
Yes.
there's clearly knowledge that we've lost
Yes.
in the past. Like this is for sure. Like just think about the Library of Alexandria.
Yes.
Man, imagine the knowledge that it was in there before it burned.
I
you
know. Imagine.
Oh man,
Imagine.
People thinks we lost like 1 millennia, like just when it burns. That
Well,
of knowledge, medicine, botany,
Yes.
science. It's just crazy to think of. So very often, sometimes when crazy stuff happen like that, like I just think that perhaps they had knowledge that there's knowledge that we lost. Like just think about the Greek fire. It's a weapon that was used in the naval battle, and it's really known about historian. You can research. They still don't know exactly how it works, but it was so destructive. It was like at the time it was like a secret weapon, like they didn't want to share, and it was known to be very efficient in naval battle.
I don't know what that is. I don't know about
Greek fire. If you go Greek fire, you'll get it. Boom. It was used in naval battle. So they used to throw fire flames, and they used to people that are burning. They still burn in the water. So they think it was made with some kinds of petrol or they still don't know. They cannot recreate it. And it's clearly something that a lot of historians have talked about. It's called Greek fire. It's just an example that it's clear that it's a technology that we have lost.
Well, if you just look at the pyramids, the pyramids are a perfect example of technology lost. It's almost like the best example. Like those ancient civilizations almost letting everyone know, hey, there is information that we have that's so above and beyond what's expected of people from this era. Yeah. Because if you think about people that lived 2,500 BC, you don't think about someone that had the kind of proficiency to create something that when people don't understand, it's not just that the pyramids were big, but they were so perfectly designed that when they put all the stones, they reached the top. Like if anyone was off by even a half an inch at the bottom, as time went on, an inch here, an inch there, by the time they got to the top, it would be all fucked up. It wouldn't be perfect. But the pyramids were so amazingly perfect, and they were originally covered in smooth limestone. So smooth, polished limestone that would probably be insane to look at if you were staring at it from a distance, like this immense structure of 2,300,000 stones, some of them cut from quarries hundreds of miles away, all perfectly aligned and put together by these people that lived thousands and thousands of years ago.
You know, that most scholars would say that they use a ramp, but if you think about it, like there's other scholars that would counter that by saying the construction of that ramp need to be in an angle that it could be so difficult to do that it will challenge the construction of the pyramid itself, you know?
Well, again, it's like maybe they use a ramp. I don't know what they used.
Yeah, we don't know, yeah.
But whatever they used, it's so amazingly precise that they were able to make this 2,300,000 stone structure. This still to this day. I haven't been, but I have friends that have gone. Like my friend Andrew Schultz just went. Danica Patrick, the race car driver, she told me she just went. People that I know that have been. My friend Eddie Bravo, when he went, he's like, you get there, you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. It's so big, apparently.
It's like an awakening.
Yes, that our idea of what it is, when you see it in a photograph, it looks incredible. But I guess I need to go, because I guess when you see it in person, it's just like a complete reset. Like it recalibrates what people are capable of, because you have to think like, man, this is 4,500 years old.
Think about Darren Kuyu, Gobekli Tepe.
Yes,
man, it's
Gobekli Tepe's 10,000 years older.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's like 12,000 years old. You know, like
at least.
Like how do you conceive that? And sometimes what happened is it get and infected by other civilization that passed there after that
Yeah.
construction. So they think they are the one that built it. I think is it Pumapunku, the one that
Yes.
there's clearly two different technology. You see the stone are perfectly aligned with like perfectly cut. Then you
Yes.
have other stone that are just on top, like it's like a butcher's job, and it's clearly not the same technology, the same people that build these two layers,
Right.
So
Well,
it's
that was
just
also
fast.
John Anthony West's concept of Egypt, that there's multiple eras, and that if you go deeper, like some of the stuff that they found when they dig deeper in the sand was a different construction method. It looked different designs, but still equally complex and fascinating. It's like there's probably many eras of human civilization, and there's probably been whatever it is, whether it's disease or some sort of a natural disaster or something that happened. Asteroidal impact was John Anthony or was Randall Carlson's and Graham Hancock's.
Yeah.
That's their theory. Is that
12,000 years ago,
Yeah.
at the end of the Pleistocene era.
Yes.
But Homo sapien is date to 3,000 years old. So imagine
How many?
3,000.
No, Homo sapiens.
Homo sapiens 3,000.
I think it's older than that. I think it's several hundred
Three-
thousand.
300,000. Sorry.
Oh, yes,
Three-
yes, yes,
300,000.
yes.
Sorry, my English.
Yeah. Oh, right,
Homo
right.
sapien is 300,000 in Morocco. That's just I'm 100% sure. That's why I read about this kind of stuff.
I think they think it's somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah. But so if you take that 300,000, 300,000 time for an evolution.
Right.
Why would it be only in the last 10,000 years that we would,
Invent such immense structures.
like it's kind of strange. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's also we're so different from all the other animals. Like we're the only animal that wears shoes. We're the only animal that wears clothes. We're the only animal that really manipulates its environment the way we do. I mean, other animals think, bees make beehives and shit like that, but they don't do anything even remotely interesting in comparison to what we're capable of doing and what we have done for thousands and thousands of years. And why? One of the things that Bob Lazar said that he was taught when he was at Area S4, at Area 51 S4, was that one of the things that they were telling him was that human beings are the product of accelerated evolution, and that these creatures occasionally come back to check upon our progress. And which is crazy.
Wow.
But that might be how it works throughout the universe, is that these beings that are very far advanced, they come back and they see these creatures that are pretty close, and they give them a little boost. They push them ahead a little bit, because otherwise it would take so long. And maybe we don't have the amount of time because of the fact that we're in this fucking shooting gallery of asteroids, that these things come down and whatever progress you make is wiped out by impacts or by supervolcanoes.
It's crazy, but it's not that crazy. If you look at the belief of human being through evolution, like in ancient Greek, they believe in they were believing in different gods, they like in different times, different civilization had different belief. Now some people believe Jesus walked on water, which is fine too. That's their belief, If you believe that human was, the result of alien beings, it's another belief,
It's not.
Everybody believe in different things.
It's not that crazy if you think
it's
about
not,
what
it's
we're
not.
doing.